Hello everybody, and this year I have decided to make an Oscar recap video, and I don't normally do that, but this year not only are there things to say in regards to recap the Oscars, but there's also a lot to say regarding this year in general. So, this is maybe the first time that I did not finish my Oscar predictions. I I technically did. I made like a YouTube short that I don't know if anybody saw. That was just me rattling off the categories I hadn't done yet. But of 23 categories, I only did 15, and I didn't do 8 videos. And not only that, but if you were paying attention to the videos that were released, you can probably tell not only was my schedule all over the place, but my heart was very clearly not in those videos. So I wanted to make this as a way of sort of explaining what's been going on with me. The short answer is I've come under some pretty bad depression for the past month or so, and it's doing better now, but it's still not in a great place. Don't worry, I'm not like that far down. You don't have to worry about my safety or anything. But in terms of my video output, I found I was losing motivation to continue making videos on the Oscars, even though the Oscars are supposed to be the thing that I love more than anything. But this year I was having some difficulty with that. And part of it is the films that were nominated. Obviously, depression as a whole is a much bigger thing that is not just impacted by the things that are going on in your life, but there are certain things in my life that were impacting it, and one of them was the Oscars. I made a whole video about the lack of any nominations for animated films outside of the animated feature film category. I'm not going to rehash all the points I made in that video, but that was something that really got to me, and it really sucked knowing that the Oscars did not necessarily respect animation the way I do. So, following that, there was also what's going on. Not to say personal life, but just I don't know if I've ever talked about this publicly, but the past few years I have been doing a lot of community theater acting, and last year I was doing some really high profile projects that I was really really excited about, and it felt like I felt like I was moving in a really positive direction. And then to go from last year where I was just getting role after role to suddenly this year where with no lead in at all, I suddenly can't land an audition to save my life. And sometimes it be like that. Sometimes this sort of thing just happens, you just hit a slump, and I'm trying to get back into it hopefully soon, but I it felt like my life was going in one direction and then I was sort of hit a stumbling block. And this was happening at the same time as the Oscars. And of course, we have everything going on in the news politically and with climate change and with just, there was just sort of a lot going on, and I found myself getting depressed for that reason. And for a while, because I was feeling this long before the point where I stopped uploading videos. And for a while, I was just gonna like keep going. I was just gonna power through. But yeah, to be perfectly honest, I'm a little tempted to delete the prediction videos that I did make because they're just not well thought out. Not only is my heart not in it, but also, like, you can almost hear the disdain that I have for and my apathy towards the movies. Not that there are bad movies competing, but I don't know. It's a hard thing to describe. It's a hard feeling. It's those of you who have gone through it, maybe you know what I'm talking about, where the thing that used to fill you with such joy just doesn't anymore. And this is not me saying that I'm canceling the channel. I think I just went through a rough patch, and I'm gonna get better. And I have other things that I want to try to reach out. I talked in the previous video about doing some sort of podcast breaking down the animated feature race, which may or may not turn into like a video series, depending on how I want to do at that. I'm really going to have to think about that, but I want to do something with the animated feature category. And I have been working actually on the year in advance predictions, which should be going up shortly after this video. So this is not me saying that I'm done with the Oscars. This is just me saying I needed to take a break this year because just of everything going on in my life. So hopefully you understand. I do want to get to the actual Oscar recap part. So of the categories that I did not call, the categories that I did not make videos for, they were animated shorts, animated feature, sound, visual effects, production design, costume design, adapted screenplay, and picture. So let me just take through everything that happened in the night, and I can sort of break down what happened with those categories. So live action short was an easy call, The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. It's interesting that Wes Anderson did not show up. I thought that he was going to. We all wanted to see what a Wes Anderson acceptance speech was going to look like. Like, you do all this to win your first Oscar, and then you don't even show up. But animated short and documentary short, we had an interesting dilemma, because in both of those categories, from everything I was hearing, there was a clear consensus on the movie that everyone likes and the movie that everyone thinks is going to win. And in both categories, there was this is the super emotionally manipulative one. This is the one that's going to appeal to the Academy, even though it's not good. Interestingly, it was sort of reversed. With documentary short, I was predicting that they were going to ignore The Last Repair Shop, which was the one that everyone likes, and give it to the more emotionally manipulative 99 Weipo. And ultimately, they did not. They actually did the right thing and gave it to the better one, Last Repair Shop. But then, in animated short, they did the reverse. And this was where I was actually predicting they would go with the well-liked 95 Senses, and they didn't. They went with the War is Over, which is not one that people like. So it was interesting. We got one good short surprise and then one bad short winner. And sometimes the emotionally manipulative ones are just what wins, and you just have to deal with it. But sometimes they do surprise you. I don't know what to take away from these short winners, because I was predicting the reverse outcome, and yeah, the shorts are just frustrating every year. International feature was Zone of Interest, easy call. So was documentary for 20 Years in Mariupol, but that was definitely the most, maybe the favorite speech of the night. Really, really well put by the director there. And, okay, so here's what I really want to talk about. Best Animated Feature was a surprise. It went to Boy and the Heron. Now, one of the reasons I was waiting to do animated feature was because I knew that was going to be a really close race between Boy and the Heron and Spider-Verse. But my gut was certainly leaning towards Spider-Verse. I was like, that's the more popular film, and I've seen a lot of critics groups put it in their top 10 for Best Picture, so I was pretty confident that Spider-Verse was going to win. And it was a big shocker that Boy and the Heron won. But it's not necessarily a shocker that I'm upset about. I think my personal favorite in the category is Nimona, but both Boy and the Heron and Spider-Verse are really, really good films. And looking at, first of all, the fact that a PG-13 movie won, the first in this category's history, it is without question the most mature and adult film to have ever won animated feature. And hopefully, this, if nothing else, puts a spotlight on the fact that animated movies are not just for kids. Jimmy Kimmel, who did have some good humor throughout the night, he did make a rather irritating joke right before the presentation of animated feature about how, you probably can let your kids vote on this category for you. And that joke was immediately proven wrong by Boy and the Heron winning. And I just hope that I don't know what next year will hold for animated movies. It doesn't look to be as strong, but I hope that when the time comes, the Academy learns to, treat animated movies with a modicum of respect. And now, okay, this is the one, I'm upset I didn't get to make a video about this one, because I called this race. This was everyone else's big surprise of the night, but this was the one that I called. Best Sound for the Zone of Interest. As soon as I saw the Zone of Interest, I was like, okay, but are we sure that Oppenheimer is winning sound? Because this movie uses sound in such an inventive way, and it's so crucial to the success of the movie. The simple fact is, you cannot have a conversation about the zone of interest without mentioning the way that the movie utilizes sound. It's just so essential to the core of the film. And Oppenheimer also uses sound well, but I feel like zone of interest is a whole new thing, and this is what I would have said in the video, and even if it was a surprise and caught a lot of people off guard, it was the one that I predicted. It's funny, looking at the lineups, there aren't a ton of surprises. I mean, there are a few things that weren't widely predicted, but it was always the number 2. We didn't have like a shocker number 3 or 4 upset, like All Quiet winning production design last year. What was really, really shocking because no one was paying any consideration for that. Sometimes you do get a big out-of-nowhere surprise, but here... Oh, okay, so back to the core of the video. Song went to What Was I Made For? Score went to Oppenheimer, both very deserved wins, very predictable wins. Visual effects went to Godzilla. Now, again, I did not make a video about this, but if I had, I would have predicted Godzilla. I do think the lineup is not terribly strong, but I also think that I feel like if you just ask a group of people, look at these 5 movies, which is the best film, they'll probably point out Godzilla. I think Godzilla was this great underdog success that a lot of people really, really responded to. And I just feel like even though the creator may have had more impressive effects, Godzilla was a movie that people could feel really, really good about rewarding. And so I would have called this if I had gotten the chance to make a video on it. Unfortunately, I swear I'm not just saying this after the fact, and I can prove it because of what happened with Poor Things. So Poor Things took makeup, production design, and costume design. And I did make a video on makeup where I said that I predicted Maestro to win. However, production design and costume design, I was going back and forth until the literal last minute, and it would have been really, really hard for me to make these videos anyway because I really, really tortured myself over this. But in the end, I just said, I'm going to predict Barbie to win both. And in the end, Barbie lost both to Poor Things. I actually made a prediction where I said, I think Poor Things is going to go 0 for 11. I think it's going to be a goose egg. It's not going to win a single one. And then the egg was on my face because Poor Things won 3 in a row tonight. Makeup, costume, production design, they all happened at the same point. There was that John Cena streaker bit that was amazing. The comedy bits were pretty good this year. And it's deserving work, but I do feel like Barbie could have gotten one of those things. And yeah, I don't really know what lesson to take from this for the future, but I guess just look to BAFTA and look to the movie that premiered later in the season. Cinematography and editing both went to Oppenheimer. Original screenplay went to Anatomy of a Fall. Adapted screenplay went to American Fiction. If I had been able to post that video, then I would have said that American Fiction was my vote, even though Barbie was a close number 2. By the way, part of what made it difficult for me to put out videos was I was having this really annoying problem with my computer where a lot of the images were getting jammed. It's fixed now, and I'm going to get a new computer soon, but so I was having technical difficulties on top of the depression, which was just really making me not want to do this stuff. But yeah, American Fiction is a good winner, and the acting categories, the 3 that everyone called, Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Da'Vine Joy Randolph, all good speeches. But the big thing that everyone's talking about is Best Actress for Emma Stone, and this is something that I've really been thinking about a lot. Yes, I was rooting for Lily Gladstone. Yes, I made the prediction video of her where I was so confident that it was going to be Lily. And it was Emma. And you know what? I've had some time to think about it, and I'm not super mad. I think that it was close. I think that when you watch Poor Things, what Emma Stone is doing in that movie is really impressive. You watch the movie and you understand why she won the Oscar. It would have been really, really nice to see Lily Gladstone win this, but I ultimately understand why it happened. And a lot of the things people were saying about, like, oh, this is going to be the big defining moment of her career. Like, if she doesn't win here, she might never get this chance again. And I think that's sort of been it's been proven wrong because Lily Gladstone has already gotten a bunch of projects in the lineup. She got a bunch of projects that she's gonna do, and she's well liked. Also, both Lily and Emma genuinely seem to be really good friends on the campaign trail. They seem to be rooting for each other a lot. We've seen at SAG how Emma was applauding Lily's win so much. But then at the Oscar, I was initially focused on Emma Stone's shocked reaction to her win and perhaps looking a bit horrified because she did not want to take that moment away from Lily Gladstone. But if you actually look at Lily Gladstone's reaction to that moment, she does not look disappointed. She looks incredibly happy and supportive for Emma to win. And granted, that might be because she's an incredible actress, but I don't think Lily is upset, and I know that Lily could have gone supporting and she would have had a very easy path to winning the Oscar, but honestly, I think she made the right call. I think she was the face of the movie, and I think it's a big, big deal for her as an actress to get this recognition. And it must be frustrating for Scorsese to have three movies get 10 nominations and 0 wins after Gangs of New York and The Irishman. It must be really tough. And then picture and director went to Oppenheimer. So, because I never got to make a Best Picture prediction video, I want to talk a little bit about why I was so hesitant about Oppenheimer as the Best Picture frontrunner. Because if you see a lot of my earlier videos, I was like, I don't think Oppenheimer's winning, I don't think Oppenheimer's winning. And at a certain point, it became inevitable. Like, at a certain point, Oppenheimer just had everything, and there really was no denying anymore that it was going to win. And it wasn't any ill will towards the movie. It was that I've been watching the Oscars for a long time now, and I've been keeping track of certain patterns. And one pattern that I've noticed, most years, there is always some variant of a David versus Goliath story. Most years, there is some big movie that everyone is declaring the frontrunner that gets taken out by something smaller that has a more passionate fan base behind it. 1917 versus Parasite, Power of the Dog versus Coda, Roma versus Green Book, La La Land versus Moonlight. Even when the preferential ballot first started with Avatar versus Hurt Locker, we see this pattern repeat time and time again. Even Everything Everywhere, I know it was winning a lot and it was technically the frontrunner, but The Fabelmans was the movie that was poised to be the frontrunner, and that's like the Steven Spielberg biopic compared to this really weird movie with multiple universes and hot dog fingers. And Everything Everywhere, because it's such a weird movie and because it's so far removed from the type of film that would normally win Best Picture, it felt like the underdog even though it really wasn't, and it was able to maintain that narrative. And most years, we see some variant of this underdog narrative. There's some big movie, and then there's some smaller movie that no one's really looking at, but that's where the passion lies. And so this year, when Oppenheimer premiered in July, people were already declaring it the Best Picture frontrunner. And I'm like, okay, it's July, we have to go all the way to March to get to the Oscars. And even the movie's initial premiere, there was controversy. There were people saying that the female characters in the film were not well written. There were people upset that we didn't get more of the Japanese perspective to the bombings. I was like, all this hype is going to die down eventually. And then it just never did. And it was really, really bizarre to watch because I'm like, I've seen this rigmarole. There's always a Goliath. Now we just gotta wait for the David to show up. David never showed up. I just cannot. And again, it's not that I think Oppenheimer is a bad movie. I think it's a well-made film. But it just feels weird. Partially because it's traditional. It's a biopic. It's a true story. It's black and white. And it's historical. It feels like Oscar bait. But it was also Oscar bait that made a bunch of money. And it has a downer ending. Like, Best Picture winners do not usually have downer endings. I was so primed for there to be an upset. And it's still bizarre to me that there wasn't. And this is not me hating the film. I was when Barbie missed out on Best Director and Best Actress, I was like, this is it. Barbie is going to pull an Argo where people are so upset about the director snub that it catapults the movie into Best Picture. And that just didn't happen because the backlash burned fast, and pretty soon enough, there was a backlash to the backlash where people were like, it didn't really deserve that nomination anyway. And yeah, you know what? Maybe I'm not the biggest Oppenheimer fan in the world, but a lot of other people really love it, and it's a very well good film. Christopher Nolan has his Oscar. There's a lot to be happy about here. And when I think about it, way back in my year in advance predictions, I said something to the effect of, after Everything Everywhere, this such an unorthodox contender winning, I think we're going to follow that up. The pendulum is going to swing the other way, and we're going to get a movie that does not feel like, and we're going to, the pendulum is going to swing the other way, and we are going to get a movie that feels like much more traditional Oscar bait. At the time, I said in Killers of the Flower Moon, and then I sort of pivoted to Color Purple, and I went back and forth on everything when Oppenheimer was the obvious answer all along. And I don't know what that means for this year, but I will say this. If there is a pattern that I'm noticing, is that you should never get complacent with what the Oscars did the year before. Like, I feel like every year there's some kind of strategy of, oh, the Oscars did this last year, so we should watch for them to do the same thing this year. And they don't. If anything, they always are doing the opposite of what they did the previous year. Like, we thought that Society of the Snow might be this year's All Quiet on the Western Front, and it wasn't. We thought that Lily Gladstone was going to do the exact same thing that Michelle Yeoh did last year, and she didn't. It's just so... The only thing consistent about the Oscars is their inconsistency. And with that in mind, I am working on a year in advance predictions that should be out relatively shortly. Happy St. Patrick's Day, that's why I'm recording this. I don't know what my video output is going to be like this year. I might try some other stuff that's not related to movies coming out this year. Well, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you when I see you.